In the depths of the vast galaxy, on a planet far from Earth, the Galactic Research Coalition had long awaited this moment. It was an event that had been planned for centuries. The first mission to study humanity. Earth had been a mystery to the galaxy, isolated from the rest of the universe, its people and culture unknown to the many advanced civilizations that existed beyond its atmosphere. The coalition had chosen a group of the best and brightest researchers from various planets. Their mission was to observe Earth's inhabitants, humans, and gather data on their societies, technologies, biology, and culture. They were eager to study a species that had remained untouched for so long. The mission was a historic one, and it was expected to bring great knowledge and understanding. The crew of the starship Stellar Voyager had prepared for years. They were experts in many fields: biologists, anthropologists, engineers, and linguists. They studied Earth's data from a distance, using advanced telescopes and satellites to analyze the planet. Yet no one could truly understand what Earth was like until they set foot on its surface. Months passed, and the team traveled through the stars to reach Earth. They arrived in the atmosphere, cloaked and hidden from human eyes. Their mission was simple: observe, study, and gather information. There was no plan to interfere with Earth's natural course. They would observe and report back to their superiors. However, as the Stellar Voyager prepared to depart from Earth, something went horribly wrong. The ship's return was not as planned. Only one researcher emerged from the ship, a disheveled figure stumbling onto the docking platform. His name was Voran, the lead scientist of the mission, and he was the sole survivor of the crew. He was barely recognizable. His face was pale, and his eyes were hollow, haunted by something no one could understand. His body seemed to have aged rapidly, as though years had passed in the mere weeks of his absence. The officers at the station were shocked to see him alone. They had expected the entire crew to return, not just one person, especially not in such a state. They rushed to his side, offering medical assistance, but Voran pushed them away with a frantic gesture. "Seal it," he gasped, his voice ragged and frantic. "Seal Earth, before it's too late. The galaxy cannot know. You have to keep it locked away." The commander of the station, an alien named Threx, who was known for his calm demeanor and sharp mind, stepped forward cautiously. "Voran, what happened? Where is the rest of your team? What is going on?" Voran's breathing quickened. "The others, they're gone. They didn't make it. We were unprepared. Earth is dangerous." His hands trembled as he clutched his chest, his mind clearly racing. "You don't understand. It's not what we thought. It's not what you think." Threx frowned. He had been briefed on the mission, and everything had seemed so simple: an exploration, a peaceful gathering of knowledge. But now it was clear something had gone terribly wrong. "Voran, take a moment," Threx said gently. "We need to know what happened. We can't help you if you're not clear." But Voran was beyond reason. His eyes darted around the station, as if he feared someone or something was watching him. His voice dropped to a whisper. "We shouldn't have gone there. Earth should never have been touched. The humans, they're not just animals, not just creatures. They have the power to destroy everything. The weapon, it's already there, hidden away. It will destroy us all." The officers were silent. Threx felt a coldness in the air, a strange unease settling in his chest. Voran was a respected researcher, his mind once sharp and clear, but now he seemed broken, lost in his own thoughts, terrified of something invisible. What had he witnessed on Earth that could cause this kind of fear? "We need to seal the information," Voran continued, his voice rising with panic. "Tell the Council. Tell them to close Earth off. No one can know what's there, not the galaxy, not anyone. I'm begging you, you have to trust me." The alien scientists and officials around Threx exchanged uneasy glances. They had been eagerly awaiting this mission's return, ready to learn everything about Earth. But now the lead researcher, the only survivor, was urging them to erase all the knowledge, to hide it forever. Threx leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. What did you see there, Voran? What is on Earth that could make you so afraid? Voran's eyes flickered with terror. He shook his head, his hands trembling. I can't say. It's too much. Too dangerous. If I speak, it could be worse. But you must seal Earth away. It has to be done. Threx stood still, feeling the weight of the situation pressing on him. This was no longer just a routine research mission. This was something far more complicated and dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Voran's fear was palpable, and the warnings he gave had shaken the entire station. The truth of what had happened on Earth remained locked inside his mind. But the one thing he was sure of was that Earth had to be hidden, sealed off from the rest of the galaxy. The alien officials had to make a decision. Should they listen to Voran and seal Earth away forever? Or should they ignore his warnings and risk a greater threat to the galaxy? No one could say for certain what lay beneath the surface of Earth, but Voran's plea haunted them. What had happened there? And could it really be as dangerous as he claimed? The future of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now rested in the hands of the officials. The following days were filled with uncertainty. Voran's words echoed in the minds of the alien officials and researchers who had witnessed his return. No one could understand why only one of the crew had returned. The questions were endless. What had happened on Earth? Why had Voran been so terrified? What was it that had broken him? Voran had been placed in a secure medical facility, isolated from the rest of the base. His physical condition was poor. He looked much older than he had when he left, and his once sharp mind seemed clouded. It was as though a heavy weight had been placed on his soul. The other members of his crew were missing, presumed dead, but there were no signs of injury on Voran's body. It was almost as if he had been consumed by something more than just physical harm. The medical officers worked tirelessly to examine him, but no one could find any physical explanation for the rapid aging. His vitals were stable, yet his mind was fractured. He spoke in disjointed sentences, sometimes refusing to speak at all, only staring blankly into space. Voran's condition puzzled the doctors, but Threx, the commander, knew that the answer wasn't in his physical state, it was in his mind. The information Voran held was far too dangerous to be left untold. The truth needed to come out, but Voran seemed unwilling, or perhaps unable, to speak coherently. It was clear that a different approach was needed. Threx called for a private session with Voran, hoping that some calm and reassurance would coax the truth out. He needed to know what had happened, what he had witnessed. This wasn't just a personal matter anymore. It was a galactic concern, as Threx entered the room where Voran was being kept. He noticed the researcher sitting in a corner staring out of the small window. His expression was distant, almost as though he were reliving something horrifying in his mind. The silence in the room was thick, as if even the air itself was waiting for the truth to be spoken. Voran, Threx said softly, approaching the researcher, we need to talk. Voran didn't respond immediately. He sat motionless, his hands clenched tightly together. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. They're not ready, he said, his words trembling with fear. No one is ready for what I saw. Threx took a seat across from him, his expression gentle but serious. What happened, Voran? What did you see on Earth that's so dangerous? The researcher slowly turned his head to face Threx, his eyes filled with a deep, haunting sorrow. The humans, he said, his voice breaking. They are unpredictable. They are capable of incredible things that no one can truly understand. Threx waited, not speaking, giving Voran the space he needed to continue. He could see that the researcher was struggling, the words trapped in his throat, but Threx was patient. He knew that the truth was critical. They have a power, Voran continued, his voice shaky. A power that can either create or destroy everything. Their technology, its potential is beyond anything we've seen. But it's not just their technology. It's their emotions, their will. It drives them to greatness, but it also drives them to destruction. Threx leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing in focus. What do you mean? What kind of power are you talking about? Varan shook his head as if trying to shake away the memories. I don't know how to explain it, but on Earth there is something ancient, something hidden beneath the surface, buried deep in the planet. It's not just technology. It's a weapon, an artifact left by an old, forgotten race. Threx's heart skipped a beat. A weapon? Could it be true? Earth had always been considered a primitive planet, isolated from the galactic community. Yet Varan's words suggested something much more dangerous. Tell me more, Threx urged. Varan closed his eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. His body trembled as though the memories were too much for him to handle. The weapon is dormant, for now, but the humans, they've already begun to unlock it. Their scientists, their engineers, their military, they've unknowingly stumbled upon something that could destroy everything. Not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. It could wipe out entire civilizations, civilizations that have existed for millennia. Threx felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors of ancient weapons before, artifacts from long-lost alien races, but he had never imagined something like this could be hidden on Earth, let alone unlocked by humanity. Why didn't you stop them? Threx asked, his voice firm. Why didn't you warn the others? Varan's eyes snapped open, and for a brief moment, there was a spark of clarity in his gaze. We didn't know. We thought we could control it. We thought we could contain it, but when we found the artifact and it was too late, it's like a force, a power that manipulates their minds, their emotions. It's not just a weapon, it's part of them. It's in their very nature. And if they unleash it, there will be no stopping it. Threx felt the weight of Varan's words. The researcher had always been a calm, composed individual, a scientist dedicated to knowledge. But now, he was a broken man, shattered by the knowledge he had uncovered on Earth. There's no time, Varan whispered, his voice barely audible. You have to seal it. You have to shut down the portal, the information, everything. Earth must be sealed off from the galaxy, before it's too late. Threx stood up, his mind racing. This was more than just a simple research mission gone wrong. This was a potential disaster, one that could change the course of galactic history. He turned to leave, but not before looking back at Varan. We will do everything we can to protect the galaxy, Threx said. But you have to be clear with us. We need the details. The galaxy's future may depend on what you can tell us. Varan didn't respond. His eyes were vacant again, staring off into the distance as though lost in some memory far beyond the room. Threx's heart was heavy as he left the room. The truth of Earth's power had just begun to unfold, and it was a truth that no one, not even the researcher, was ready for. The tension on the base had reached its peak. Varan's warnings had sent shockwaves through the alien officials and scientists, leaving them with a sense of dread they couldn't shake. Earth, a planet they had long overlooked, now seemed like a ticking time bomb. But the question remained, was Varan's fear justified? Or was it simply the result of his mental break after witnessing something too traumatic? To answer that question, Threx, the commander, knew what had to be done. He couldn't just rely on Varan's fractured testimony. The only way to truly understand the threat Earth posed was to investigate the planet themselves. But sending a team to Earth was not without its risks. They had no idea what they would find, but one thing was certain. The stakes were high. Threx gathered a small team of highly trusted officials, each with specialized skills. Among them was Lyra, a brilliant scientist with a deep understanding of ancient technologies. Zorak, a tactician known for his strategic thinking, and Korath, a seasoned explorer who had traveled across many planets and understood the dangers that unknown worlds could present. The team boarded a ship, the Eclipse, and set course for Earth. As they approached the planet, the vast blue and green orb grew larger in their view. The sight was breathtaking, yet beneath its beauty there was a sense of foreboding. What secrets did this planet hold? What dangers lurked beneath the surface? Upon entering Earth's atmosphere, the team used cloaking technology to remain undetected by humans. Their mission was simple: to observe, gather data, and report back. They knew they had to be careful, Earth's inhabitants might be primitive in comparison to the advanced species of the galaxy, but they were unpredictable, just as Varan had said. The team landed in a remote region of the planet, far from human settlements. They had chosen this location for its relative isolation. Lyra was the first to step out of the ship, scanning the environment with her advanced sensors. The air was fresh, and the temperature was mild. The forest around them was alive with strange sounds, the chirping of unknown creatures echoing in the distance. Everything seemed peaceful, almost idyllic. But as they moved deeper into the forest, the team began to feel an unsettling sensation, a sense that something was watching them, something unseen. "It feels wrong," Zorak muttered, his hand resting on his weapon. He had been to many dangerous places in his lifetime, but this felt different. Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon. "There's something here, something ancient." Korath, who had remained quiet until now, spoke up. "Varan warned us about Earth's hidden dangers. I think we're about to see it for ourselves." The team continued deeper into the forest, following the faint signals from Lyra's scanner. As they moved, they came across strange markings, etched into the trees. Symbols that seemed out of place in the natural environment. These symbols were not of any known language in the galaxy. They were old, perhaps older than any civilization they had encountered. Lyra paused and studied them for a moment before speaking. These symbols, they look like they were carved by a species that no longer exists, an ancient civilization. Zorak looked uneasy. "Do you think this is what Varan was talking about?" Before Lyra could respond, Korath's voice broke through. "Look over there." They turned to see a large stone structure partially hidden by the trees. The architecture was unlike anything the team had seen before. It was a mix of both primitive and advanced design, as if it had been constructed long ago but somehow maintained its integrity through the ages. It was almost as though the structure had been built to withstand the passage of time itself. The closer they got, the more they realized that the structure was not just a building. It was a massive underground facility. Lyra's scanner beeped, signaling that they were near something significant. She crouched down and began scanning the ground. "There's an entrance, buried here, but it's deep." The team spent hours uncovering the entrance, using their advanced tools to break through the dense vegetation and earth. As they finally exposed the doorway, they found that it was made of an unrecognizable material, one that didn't match anything in their database. It was smooth, almost organic in appearance, yet it radiated an energy that seemed both alien and familiar. "This is it," Lyra whispered. "This is what Varan warned us about." Threk stepped forward, his expression grim. "We need to go inside." The team entered the underground facility cautiously, their weapons drawn and their senses heightened. The air inside was cool, and the walls were lined with strange, glowing symbols that seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm. The deeper they went, the more they felt an eerie presence, as though the very walls were alive with some kind of hidden energy. After what felt like an eternity of walking through the dimly lit corridors, they reached a massive chamber. In the center of the room was a large metallic object, its shape incomprehensible, as though it was not meant for human eyes to understand. It was covered in intricate carvings, and Lyra's scanner went haywire as it tried to make sense of the data. Whatever this object was, it was powerful, ancient, and far beyond the technology of any known civilization. "This is it," Lyra breathed. "This is the artifact. It's not just technology, it's a weapon unlike anything we've ever seen." Korath's eyes narrowed. "This is what Varan meant. This is the danger. If humanity taps into this power, there will be no stopping them." Threx's mind raced as he considered the implications. The artifact had been hidden for a reason. It was far too dangerous for anyone, especially a species as unpredictable as humans, to possess. If they unleashed its power, it could indeed change the course of history. But would humanity even be able to control it? "We have to stop them," Threx said, his voice firm. "We can't allow them to access this power." Lyra nodded, her face pale. But how do we stop them? We don't even know how to control it ourselves. We may not be able to contain it once it's unleashed. The team stood in the chamber, staring at the artifact. It was clear that Earth had the potential to either save or destroy the galaxy, depending on how its inhabitants chose to use the power they had uncovered. And now, the fate of the galaxy rested in their hands. The Eclipse crew stood in the heart of the ancient underground facility, surrounded by the hum of unknown energy, radiating from the artifact at the center of the room. Every inch of the space seemed to pulse with an eerie power, as if the entire structure were alive watching them. The stone walls were covered in symbols, their meaning still a mystery, and the air was thick with the weight of something far more dangerous than any of them had imagined. Threx, the commander, stood at the front, his eyes locked onto the object in the center of the room. His mind raced as he considered the implications of what they had found. The artifact, whatever it was not something that any civilization, especially humanity, should be allowed to control. "We've found it," Threx said, his voice low, yet resolute. "This is the power that Varan warned us about." Lyra, the scientist, was still scanning the artifact with her equipment, but the readings were growing increasingly erratic. "The energy levels are off the charts," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before. It's as if the artifact is drawing power from the very core of the planet. This kind of energy, it shouldn't exist." Zorak, the tactician, had been silent until now. His sharp eyes were focused on the dark corridors that stretched out from the chamber, as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "We should be careful. Whatever this thing is, it's a weapon, and weapons like this don't stay dormant forever." Korath, the explorer, nodded in agreement. He had seen many dangerous artifacts in his travels, but none with the kind of power this one seemed to hold. If humanity discovers this and learns to harness it, there will be no stopping them. They may think they can control it, but we know better. Power like this, it corrupts. Threx turned to face his team, his expression serious. "We cannot let this get into the wrong hands. We need to secure the artifact and make sure Earth is sealed off before humanity even knows what it holds." But Lyra shook her head slowly, her face pale. "It's not that simple. We don't even know how to contain this kind of power. What if, Zorak interrupted, his voice hard. "What if we do nothing? What if humanity unlocks this power and ends up destroying everything? The galaxy could burn before anyone even realizes what's happening." Lyra's eyes narrowed, and she looked down at her scanner. "I'm not saying we should do nothing. I'm just saying we need to think this through. We don't know the full extent of what this artifact can do. We might only have one chance to contain it." Korath stepped forward, his voice calm yet firm. "Then let's take that chance, but we must act now. The longer we wait, the greater the risk." Threx's mind churned as he weighed their words. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. If they didn't act quickly, Earth might soon become a battleground. The last thing the galaxy needed was for humanity to gain access to this artifact's power, especially when it was clear that they weren't yet ready to understand the consequences. "Agreed," Threx said at last, his voice steady. "We'll contain the artifact and seal Earth away. We'll prevent any further contact with humanity until we can ensure they're ready for something of this magnitude." Lyra looked up, her eyes still filled with concern. "But how do we even begin? We have no idea how this artifact works or how to neutralize it." Threx turned to the massive object at the center of the room. "We'll start by securing it. We'll send a signal to the command center to alert them of the discovery, and then we'll find a way to lock it down. We may not know how it works, but we can keep humanity away from it. That has to be our priority." The team moved quickly, working together to set up their containment systems around the artifact. Lyra and Korath handled the technical aspects, while Zorak and Threx kept watch, ensuring that nothing could interrupt their efforts. But as the minutes ticked by, the weight of their actions began to settle on them. They weren't just trying to stop a weapon from being used. They were trying to prevent an entire species from unknowingly unleashing something they couldn't control. Once the artifact was properly secured, Threx activated the communication, Systems, sending a report to the Galactic Research Coalition. His message was brief, outlining their findings and the immediate threat posed by the artifact. He knew that sealing Earth off from the galaxy would be a difficult decision for the Council, but he had no choice. The risks were too great. As he waited for a response, he turned to his team. They were all exhausted, their minds still reeling from what they had uncovered. Korath stood silently, his expression hard as ever, while Zorak paced back and forth, his hands clenched into fists. Lyra looked at the artifact one last time, her face full of conflicted emotions. "Is it really the right choice?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling. "Is sealing Earth off the right thing to do?" Threx met her gaze, his expression grave. "I don't know, but sometimes the right thing isn't always the easy thing." Just as he finished speaking, the communication system crackled to life and a voice came through. "Threx," the voice said, sounding strained, "the Council has reviewed your report. The decision is difficult, but they have authorized you to proceed. Earth must be sealed off immediately. No further contact is permitted. We'll send reinforcements to help contain the situation." Threx let out a slow breath. He had expected this response, but hearing it confirmed still felt like a weight on his shoulders. The decision was made. Earth would be closed off, its people left to their own devices, and no one from the galactic community would interfere. It was the only way to ensure the safety of the galaxy. "We'll carry out the orders," Threx said, his voice firm. "But we need to make sure that humanity never learns of what they were almost able to unleash. Earth must remain a secret." The team gathered their things, preparing to leave the facility and return to their ship. The artifact for now was secured, but the true danger was only beginning to reveal itself. No one could predict what would happen in the future, but one thing was certain: Earth's destiny had changed forever. The crew of the Eclipse sat in silence as the ship soared through the vast expanse of space, their minds still focused on the ancient artifact they had uncovered on Earth. The decision had been made. Earth would be sealed off from the galaxy. No one would be allowed to come into contact with it, and the powerful knowledge hidden beneath its surface would remain buried. But as the stars stretched out before them, the weight of the decision lingered in the air like a thick fog. Threx, the commander, stood at the front of the ship, gazing out of the viewing window. His hands were clasped behind his back and his mind raced with thoughts of what they had left behind. The artifact was too dangerous for anyone, especially humans, to control. The potential for destruction was unimaginable, yet there was a part of him that couldn't help but feel a deep sadness. Earth had so much potential, so much promise. It was a planet full of life, a planet full of people capable of great things. But the artifact and the power it held had made it clear that Earth wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. Lyra, the scientist, entered the control room, her face tired but determined. She had been working tirelessly to process the data from their mission, trying to make sense of what they had uncovered. As she approached Threx, she couldn't help but look out at the stars alongside him. "It feels wrong, doesn't it?" Lyra asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Threx turned to her, his eyes filled with a quiet understanding. "Yes, it does. But sometimes we have to make the hard choices for the greater good. The galaxy isn't ready for what Earth might become." Lyra nodded slowly, but her brow furrowed in thought. "I keep wondering if we were too quick to decide. What if humans can control the artifact? What if they could harness its power for good?" Threx shook his head. "We can't afford to take that chance. The power of that artifact, it's unlike anything we've ever encountered. If it falls into the wrong hands, the consequences would be catastrophic. We saw the way it affected Varan. We can't risk that." Lyra's expression softened. "I know, I wonder if we made the right call. Maybe humanity could have figured it out eventually." Zorak, the tactician, walked into the room, overhearing their conversation. He crossed his arms and looked at the two of them, a slight smirk on his face. "You're both overthinking this. We made the right choice. If we hadn't acted, the consequences would have been too great. Humans aren't ready for this kind of power. I've seen enough to know that. Korath, the explorer, joined the group, his face serious as always. The artifact is a danger. There's no doubt about that. But we need to focus on what comes next. We've sealed Earth off, but we don't know if the humans will ever find out about what happened. If they do, there could be panic, fear, or worse, an attempt to reopen contact. Threx nodded, his face hardening. That's why we can't leave any trace of the artifact. We'll need to ensure that Earth stays hidden from the rest of the galaxy. The last thing we need is for humanity to stumble upon the truth and reopen old wounds. Lyra turned to Korath, a new determination in her eyes. You're right. We need to make sure no one can trace the artifact back to Earth. We've already sent the report to the Council, but we must make sure our actions are thorough. We can't afford mistakes. Threx turned to his crew, his voice steady and commanding. We will carry out the orders to the letter. Earth must remain isolated. No one can know what lies beneath its surface. And no one can ever gain access to the artifact. The crew nodded, their resolve strengthening. They had made the right choice, they told themselves. But as they continued their journey back to their home base, each of them couldn't shake the feeling that they had left something important behind on Earth. There was so much more to humanity than they had expected, and now they could never know how the planet would evolve without the threat of the artifact hanging over them. The eclipse sped through the stars, and the crew prepared for the long journey back to the Galactic Research Coalition's headquarters. It was a journey that would take days, weeks, perhaps even months. They would be away from Earth for a long time, but the knowledge they had gained would remain with them forever. Voran's warning had been clear. Earth was a world teetering on the edge of destruction. The artifact was both its greatest strength and its most dangerous flaw. The decision to seal Earth off was a difficult one, but in the end, it was the only choice they could make. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but one thing was certain: Earth's future could not be left to chance. As the eclipse hurtled through space, Threx allowed himself a moment of reflection. It wasn't just the fate of Earth that weighed on him now, it was the fate of the galaxy. They had sealed away a powerful force, but in doing so, they had also left behind a world that was, in many ways, still very much a mystery. They had no idea what might come next, what the future held for humanity, or what consequences their actions might bring. Would humanity ever discover the truth? Would they one day find a way to unlock the power of the artifact? Or would Earth continue on its path, unaware of the dangers that lay beneath its surface? Threx didn't have the answers. No one did. But for now, Earth would remain sealed away from the rest of the galaxy, its future uncertain, its power contained. And as the eclipse disappeared into the depths of space, all Threx could do was hope that humanity would one day be ready for the power they were unknowingly sitting on. But until then, Earth was locked away, forever hidden from the galaxy.